Well, thank you for joining us today, Charlene. Let's start with a little bit about you. Could you tell us what led you to found Carrying Hope?
Yeah, so I'm a two-time surrogate myself. Carried for a heterosexual couple lives in Germany. And then after that journey, we had kind of a lot of lessons learned and things that we all agreed could be done differently and potentially even better. And my intended parents had kind of put the bug in my ear to do this. And I pursued for a while on trying to get hired by agencies and, a lot of them want to just do it as a recruiter and,
Yep.
kind of take those entry roles. And I knew I could do a lot more.
Yeah.
And then just naturally have a tendency to build and grow. And I didn't want somebody who was going to keep that, you know, minimized, I guess, and restrict it. Um, and, I connected with Nicole, who's my business partner and co-founder of Carrying Hope. And we had built a friendship during that journey. And we quickly realized like we both had this in us to do it. And so we did. And started in January of 2019.
Wonderful. Well, clearly the two of you, and I know Nicole personally as well, have always been so passionate about this industry and especially about doing things the right way in surrogacy. What does that mean when it comes to financial transparency or ensuring that surrogates feel fully supported? So I'm sure with you starting your own company, that was probably a huge priority for you.
I think a lot of it comes down to education
Mhm.
first. Like that's one of the most important first steps is educating surrogates. They oftentimes will see ads where I can make X dollar amount and they'll come to us and they expect to get it all at the end or all up front as soon as they're pregnant or expect to just be pregnant in a couple months and that's it. And as we all know in the industry, it's not that quick.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fees or dollar amounts that are tied to different milestones, to different challenges that might happen, bumps in the road that come up and explaining to them what those fees are and
Mhm.
making sure that they're comfortable with it. And if they're not, and if they're not comfortable with the risk and the financial compensation that comes with it, then this isn't for them and that's okay. But at least they're walking away with more education about the process, and can make that decision themselves instead of just thinking it's going to be, oh, well, I've had easy pregnancies. That's great. Let's chat, but let's make sure that this really is for you. So
Absolutely.
it's
It's
important.
such a vital part of the process. We've seen how overwhelming surrogacy can be, especially when there's a lot of conflicting information out there, thanks to social media about just money, contracts, maybe what's considered normal. So you're hearing it from other experiences. How do you think, you as an agency owner, you cut through that noise to just both educate surrogates and intended parents about bringing clarity on what is ethical guidance? I mean, I know you volunteer and you're part of a lot of great organizations in our community, but what are some ways that you're bringing that into your clients too?
So I share those resources so that they can go and
Oh,
actually
good.
research from the resources that these ethical standards come from that we
Yeah.
follow. So research the ASRM guidelines, research SEED's ethical standards, that we've pledged to follow and abide by. Don't just take what you read in the Facebook groups. I, Those groups can be very dangerous for people, just their mental health and preparedness of a journey. They can also be helpful, don't get me wrong,
Yep.
but you have to be very careful with those groups. And a lot of women will come to surrogacy before even knowing those groups exist.
Hmm.
And those groups can be damaging once we've educated them and they've been educated by others. It's not even just us. Even when they go to the seeds and kind of become familiar with those standards or ASRM and the guidelines,
Yep.
then they'll go and see these groups and then want to come back and challenge why things are the way they are. And, we have a surrogate right now who's challenging things in her medical records. Well, I saw in the Facebook group that another surrogate with this diagnosis, I'm sorry, she really shouldn't have been cleared. And from what you said, her journey's not complete. So hopefully,
Yep.
it does end up okay, but it's not worth the risk. And we're not going to ask intended parents to take that extra risk. Um, it's a challenge, but there are some great resources out there and pointing them to that, but also again, educating them on this is why these standards are in place. This is why these practices are in place. It's important. It's protecting you, it's protecting the intended parents, it's protecting us, it's all parties involved. So most of the time they get it, they understand it. If not, so be it. It's again, it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah, and everybody's experience is so different. So I think it's important that they get in front of the right agency, the right industry
Yeah.
professionals to get that guidance and not just rely on different stories out there. So ethics is clearly part of the heart of your work.
Yes.
How do you approach ethical decision making within your agency? So when it comes to sensitive issues, maybe there's financial issues or issues that come up in contracts. How do you kind of incorporate all that together?
Yeah, so it can be challenging because at
Yeah.
times there can be other professionals that get invited into the journey and that may not
Yep.
necessarily have been our recommendation. And maybe, intended parents already had an attorney they were working with or other professionals, clinics, things like that, um, that don't necessarily follow what we feel is considered ethical.
Correct.
Making recommendations or suggestions that are definitely not accepted
Yeah.
in our industry as being ethical. Example, transferring 3 embryos. Yes, there is a clinic out there who still recommends that.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, we let intended parents that know that those aren't practices that we will stand behind and support, and we're
Right.
not going to encourage or even consider screening any surrogates with the intentions of transferring three
Yeah.
embryos, as the example, right? Sometimes attorneys go rogue, if you will. They kind of have their own process of the way that they do things, and sometimes that goes against what everybody else had already previously agreed upon, and that can become a challenge.
Hmm.
And so we do have to sort of remind the parties that there's other people involved in this journey now. And, the attorney could very well be asking the surrogate to consider something different. And it wasn't something she asked. And we have to sort of mediate that and kind of find out where is this negotiation coming from? Because this isn't what we had educated her on or prepared for her for, or what she had originally agreed upon, but
Right.
vice versa. Intended parents, sometimes they'll want to change something. And so it's you want to stay on the ethical line, but the ethical line at the end of the day is going to come from proper education, doing things what's safe and right for everybody. But also, our job is to make sure that everybody stays on the same page and that it continues to be a good match. Because at some point, you don't want that match to get bad. Because at some point, you're stuck, right? If she's pregnant, there's not a whole lot that we can do at that point. We have to see that pregnancy through. We have a lot more work to do. So you definitely want to keep things as safe as possible and make sure that you work with the right third party professionals
Hmm.
who also really want to keep this as ethical and safe for all parties. It's not about how fast can I turn this contract around? How quickly can we get her pregnant?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, they want to have more than one baby, so let's just go ahead and transfer more embryos, things like that. We won't stand behind. And we do have our blacklist, if you will, of
Sure.
professionals that we will not work with because of unethical decisions and things that they've done.
Yeah.
And we will tell clients, both IPs and GCs, that I'm sorry, but we won't work with them. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As we look in the surrogacy industry, so kind of based on what you said, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, one thing that I think both of us as industry professionals would say we would want to see more in our industry, maybe with that blacklist that you're referring to, is that, have that open communication with your agencies, make sure everybody's on the same page, because at the end of the day, we all want to have that one goal and that successful pregnancy, that successful journey with the parties. And so when things, become a little bit more complex in contracts, that's where when it comes to escrow, that's when things just don't align and then it creates more confusion and maybe more mediation and things like that. So I think communication is huge in this industry. Wouldn't you agree?
absolutely. And transparency.
Yeah,
I tell intended parents a lot. I feel like I could tattoo those words across communication and transparency. Like I say them a lot. They're a necessity for this journey.
absolutely. Well, you're also such a strong advocate in making surrogacy more accessible, of course. What are some key ways that we can make it more safe and secure, particularly for people that maybe aren't going through like that traditional agencies and maybe they're independently as well? What would
Yeah.
be some key ways that you would, you know, push intended parents and surrogates more to have that secure option?
I wish I could say everybody is required to do, a year of research or whatever. I wish, but
Yeah,
reality is that's not the case. And honestly, myself, I didn't even do a full year of research. Like I sit there and recommend other people do. I kind of got the idea in my head and I jumped in, but I'm also the kind of person where I jump in and I jump in hard in the deep end and I
yeah,
just take it all in really fast instead of spreading it out.
sure.
And then I put things in motion. And sometimes I mean, luckily for me, it worked out fine, but for some it doesn't. And for some, financially, they feel that they need or have to cut corners or try to avoid certain services
Yep.
because they need to financially have those funds for their surrogate, for the journey, or that what if there's bed rest that happens and that's going to cost more because they don't necessarily have the financial flexibility entirely that's needed for this
Absolutely.
journey. So it can be hard
Yeah.
providing them resources, even when I will meet with intended parents all day, every day. I do it all the time,
Yep.
even knowing that they're likely not going to have it in their budget to work with an agency. But
Sure.
I will still spend my time with them to educate them on the process, what to look for, what to consider, what conversations to have with the attorneys, with your surrogate as you're meeting them, your clinic, all of that stuff, because doing it, there's a million ways to do this wrong, and there's really only one way to do it right. Can there be some slight variations? Of course, because no journey is the same.
Yep.
But knowing what's right and knowing what's wrong is crucial because when it goes wrong, it's bad.
Yep. That's such an important issue. We also will consult with intended parents, whether they, choose to work with us or not. And of course, we would love to assist them for their journey, but escrow is just so important. So, kind of speaking of the safety, I would love to get into escrow. So, as I mentioned, we'll do consultations just to educate around escrow and not particularly just with our company, but really what they should be looking for when they're using third party. Because at the end of the day, it's one of the most crucial decisions they are going to have to make because that's where all those financial matters are being managed. So, as an agency owner, why is it important for your clients to work with an independent escrow company? And how does that help build trust throughout the surrogacy process between surrogates and intended parents?
So I think it helps all parties know that it's not carrying hope that gets the final say.
Yeah,
It is going to come down to your contract, but there's also extra sets of eyes reviewing that contract to make sure that that disbursement or reimbursement request does apply and does follow the contract. And I do tell intended parents that if it doesn't, then SeedTrust is going to message us as the agency, you as
mhm,
intended parents, and say, hey, we saw a disbursement for XYZ. Is this something you guys approved outside of had already talked about? And usually with our clients, it's, oh, we had talked about that, or we as the agency already have that permission in place, and we
right.
instructed the surrogate or coordinator to go ahead and submit that disbursement.
Mm,
Um, it's important to know and tell clients that they will have access to their escrow.
yep,
And I tell intended parents all the time, just like you do online banking, you can log in at any time
yep,
and you can see every disbursement that goes in and out, every scheduled payment. You can see your ledger. You can download the receipts if you wanted for your own record keeping or for reimbursements or any benefits that you might have. And they really appreciate that. They really appreciate not having to wait for an attorney or somebody to come into the office or send it to them on the first of every month. Years ago, we had worked with an attorney that held escrow, and I will only send out the ledger once a month. You'll have to wait.
yeah.
And I'm like, the amount
Some
of time
still
it,
operate
it
that way.
took for you to send that
Yeah,
email response, you could have just attached the ledger. Like I
yeah.
work in QuickBooks, I know how it works.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's crucial that they understand why Seed Trust is our top recommendation when it comes to escrow companies. It's really it's a no-brainer for us, and our clients end up seeing that when we do show them the comparison of other options that are out there,
That's
and how it works. Our surrogates really like knowing that we can submit for them if they want and
Yep.
just send us, copies of the bills or receipts or whatever, or they can do it themselves and that they can communicate directly if they have a question. Um, I mean, we've got a few going on right now, with a couple of our cases, and, GC emailed and said, hey, there's a delay in getting that, but I'm working on it. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, great. I'm glad you guys are just so easy to communicate with our clients too, if they want to just do that directly and not go through us, but we're happy to also guide them too.
Yeah, and I think interesting enough, I have heard a misunderstanding when it comes to escrow, and maybe because it's, maybe people relate to it as, home purchase and things like that, where it's just money just goes out. So they don't fully understand that these payments are reviewed according to the contract and they're not just processed
Every time. Yeah,
exactly. So, and I think once we get in front of clients and we talk about that process with them, then it gives a side of relief and they, feel a little bit more secure and confident to use escrow in their journey. But it can be scary if you don't know what it all involves. So, money tends to be one of the most stressful parts of surrogacy, both for surrogates and intended parents. And I
yeah.
completely understand that. So, it seems that a well-managed financial process can really reduce that tension. And
I agree completely. I mean, money is one of the fastest ways to ruin any relationship,
yep,
whether it's loaning to a neighbor or a friend or a family member and you don't get paid back, or all of a sudden they can't pay you all 400 back. They can only do 200 now and 200 late. Like, regardless, there's always going to be some sort of level of discomfort with that.
yeah,
And this definitely alleviates that tremendously. But having you guys there, but also us there to sort of buffer and help communicate that, we tell our clients all the time, you guys never have to talk about money with each other
yeah,
ever. If anything financially ever comes up, any question, come to us and we'll navigate that with you. And
absolutely.
it works out very well.
Agencies play such a vital role in that, especially with, support on the escrow side. And it's not that surrogates and intended parents even want to have those financial conversations. Those aren't things that they want to be discussing during this time. So it is crucial to have that third party in place. And supporting surrogates throughout the entire process is so crucial. As we talked about earlier, social
And
media
intended parents.
and intended
It's,
parents, of course. And,
yeah.
social media can have some misconceptions, there could be some misunderstanding. If you could change one thing across the entire surrogacy industry to raise the bar for ethics, I know this is a large question, but for ethics, safety, transparency, what would it be if you had one thing that you could change?
It is a hard question. There's a lot of things. I think it is just getting change to happen is a slow process.
Yeah.
And it's going to require not necessarily politics per se, but you almost feel like you're vote for my change, right? You have to get
Right.
other people on board before it happens. Like, I'm just a tiny little peon in this massive industry, and though I have a voice and I do want it to be heard on things, I'm doing what I can to volunteer and encourage change, encourage ethics, be, spoken loudly and adapted by all professionals. We're
Sure.
working on it. I do what I
Good.
can. I do think that the standards and the standards that hopefully will soon come for other aspects of our industry, all the other third parties, not just agencies,
Mhm.
I think that should be mandatory. I do wish that, surrogates and intended parents were educated more on making sure that you are choosing an agency, an escrow company, an attorney that is affiliated with these, that have taken that pledge, that are familiar with what the standards are and agree to follow those.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's so important. And luckily, we have so many great organizations right now in our industry coming together with a lot of like minds to make that happen. And it's
We're working
baby
on
steps,
it.
but the baby steps lead to such, a greater vision for this field. So I
Yeah.
couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
So what's next for Carrying Hope? Are there any big goals, exciting dreams on the horizon that you're willing to share?
No, we're going to keep our secret sauce secret. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
love it. Yeah.
No, we're going to keep checking. Like, we're doing great. We're proud of all that we've done. We had baby 182 born last night.
Congratulations. I love that.
Yes, thank
Very good
you.
to hear.
One day after 5 years after the first baby. So in 5 years, 182. So
Amazing. Amazing.
yeah, we're really proud of that. But moving forward, we're hoping to continue our track of growth and continue to make a difference. We've got a lot of exciting things happening, I think. So
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of things ahead of you for sure. Knowing you and Nicole and the rest of your team, just absolutely a pleasure to work with. And the support you provide to surrogates and intended parents is just admirable.
yeah.
Lastly, I would love to know what's one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody considering becoming a surrogate or to be intended parents just starting out?
Meet with multiple
Yes.
agencies. No
Yeah.
matter where you're at in your research, I don't care if you just woke up this morning and said, I think surrogacy is going to be the route that we want to go.
Yeah.
Meet with multiple agencies. We are not all the same. And most of us want to educate you. Most of us want to take the time to get to know you, where you're at in the process, and help guide you. When you get that from several places,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can put together what you feel makes the most sense for you and how you would like this journey and make your decisions moving forward and next steps off of that. Don't just meet with one ensign, like truly meet with multiple.
Absolutely. I know
I mean, that
earlier.
goes for surrogates too.
Oh yeah. I know earlier you said you'd love it to be, a year of research, but it's seriously, research is so important. I
It
mean,
is.
it's speak to different professionals in the industry and get an idea of what, each perspective is. Because like you said, no agency's the same, no attorney's the same, no escrow company's the same. So really understanding what best suits you and where those safety and security aligns within each of those professionals too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish I could force people to do a year of
I
research.
know, I know. I'm huge into research and just with anything that I do in life. So I know there's a lot of great resources out there. I mean, social media, yes, there could be some misconceptions, misunderstandings, but there's also some great information out there, of course. But Charlene, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for a little midday chat break. You've
Yeah.
provided such valuable information and perspective for the surrogacy space.
Thank
So
you so
where,
much for having me. I
of
always love
course,
chatting with Abby.
I love it. So where can people find you or get connected with Carrying Hope if they want to learn more or get involved?
Yeah, so they can go to our website or any of our social media platforms. If you just even want to just follow us and follow some of our journeys, we have some intended parents who are very publicly sharing their journeys in such beautiful ways. And we've got many surrogates who like to share their journeys as well. So you can always kind of find those on our social media as we pass those along. You can find us on our website, carryinghopesurrogacy.com. And you can call, text, email me anytime.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate all that you and your agency does for surrogates and intended parents.
We appreciate you. You guys do great.
Thank
So
you.
thanks so much.